Hi everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today on integrated AI. We'll be starting in just a minute or two, but while we wait for everyone else to trickle in, you should see some poll questions appear on your screen. If they don't, they should be on the bottom Zoom panel for you to click. Please take those and we will share the results from those polls in the takeaways that we send around at the end. Stay tuned. We'll get going in a minute or two. Alrighty, let's get this going. Hi everyone, my name is Bill Elcock and I am joined by my colleague Manel Amin. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We're excited to discuss ways that Diligence Vault is leveraging AI in the investment office with the main focus on document reviews and investment memo creation. Feel free to use the Q&A chat functionality in the Zoom webinar to ask any questions or topics that you would like us to address. We'll do our best to answer them throughout the webinar today, but we'll save some dedicated time at the end for specific Q&A to make sure that all of these topics are addressed. So what we hear with investment offices from the groups that we work with is that they're often inundated and overwhelmed with data and documents. In terms of the documents that they are reviewing from DDQs, PPMs, LPAs, and different reports, both from initial, ongoing, and ad hoc due diligence, it really can be an overwhelming and daunting task. We hear sometimes for new fund reviews that some of the document review use cases can take up to 60 hours per new fund. And as clients are trying to implement new best practices, particularly for ongoing monitoring of funds, it really is a hard thing to do and to create something at scale when all of the key data points can be buried in these PDFs, creating difficulties in actionable follow-ups and a repeatable process. So some of this can lead to memos being delayed, inconsistent formatting of end results, leading from the inconsistency of how the data is being captured, and then ultimately some of the internal review workflows, both from reviewing the data, collaborating with colleagues, and dealing with version controls between fund reviews, but also particularly for, say, a Fund 2 to Fund 3 review, can really be a challenge to leverage that information. And ultimately, one of the biggest drivers can be optimizing where the expertise of the team is spent. Too much time can be spent on data capture and writing and not enough on the analysis and decision making. And that's something that we are working at Diligence Vault to really reverse and flip. Manel later on will be walking us through some platform walkthroughs, and we've broken this down into two main use cases. First being document reviews. So Diligence Vault has created a number of templates that have pre-engineered prompts in them, really with the emphasis of how important prompting can be for some of your data extractions. These templates will be available for clients to use, but of course, as diligence is not a one-size-fits-all type of process, you'll be able to customize these for your specific needs, modify them, and add the relevant data points that you are looking to extract from the manager-provided documents. And so after doing that and reviewing the data points, we will go through the source attribution and reasoning with different confidence scores and pointing back to where exactly in the document that it was found. We have AI run on top of AI to help give this source attribution and reasoning to really bring home that trust but verify approach that due diligence professionals take, particularly when incorporating AI. A lot of this can then lead to more consistent data capture across the different firms and funds that you are reviewing to build up that more institutional and robust internal database of manager data, but being able to do more with that data when it's not just sitting in static PDFs. As part of these document templates, we'll walk through the ability to flag risks and outliers, so set up some parameters and controls for when data points are too high or too low, or a change is outside of an acceptable risk threshold. Leverage that AI to have those outliers and risks automatically flagged. And then we'll look at some of the different data visualization aspects that we have through Power BI to create custom dashboards to understand data points across one firm, one fund, different vintages, or a particular cohort of managers. And so we've really taken an integrated and systematic approach to AI. There can be different ways of going about this when reviewing fund documents. And so starting at the top, thinking about some manual reviews that can be done, or experimenting with chatbot Q&A workflows. Is that the best way to do it? And through our research and in-depth work with our clients, we've really landed on that systematic approach where we think it will have the most effective outcomes from both a time, cost, ROI, and ultimately accuracy approach. So we'll walk through a couple of different examples of documents that can be leveraged across an investment office, both from an investment team perspective, operational due diligence team perspective, broader operations perspective, ESG compliance, leveraging different quantitative and qualitative data points. And so we have a couple of different examples in the pre-engineered templates that we'll walk through, as well as some of the specific examples that we will show live today during the platform walkthroughs, with different use cases for both that initial, ongoing, and when something happens in the market, how can you best extract those data points from PDFs to make them actionable insights? The second part will focus on automated memo generation. And so these memos can be used for things like different pipeline meetings, team meetings, investment committee memos, or client-ready deliverables that you want to have in your own branded and customized format. And leveraging AI to help create that first draft has been a big efficiency gain, both from creating it leveraging manager-provided documents, data that you've extracted from those documents, or if you're using DiligenceVault to send out your own custom diligence request, that works too, but certainly not a requirement as we think through the first draft of the memo creation. From there, leveraging some further collaborative and workflow tools with assigning different subject matter experts to review specific aspects, comments, red lines, track changes, and have that full audit trail and approval workflows. And ultimately being able to export this off into the different stylized formats that you'll need, longer form, short form, or the desired end audience. And so we hear from a lot of clients and different industry chatter within AI of how accurate is AI, and seen different results from using some generic types of tools. But something that IBM's head of AI said recently tied back into the quality of the results being a factor of both model, prompt, and context. And so DiligenceVault leveraging multi-models, and then spending so much time of how we've implemented our AI to emphasize the context of the data that's flowing in, as well as the detail within the prompt will ultimately yield the highest ROI here. And so wrapping all of this up before jumping into the platform, really wanted to bring home the power of creating some structured knowledge in that internal database of both of data of your own as well as manager data that can be leveraged and pulled out from those manager provided documents, creating best-in-class workflows with multiple different teams, departments, and having that full audit trail of all of those. And then ultimately shifting that focus that we talked about earlier from too much time spent on data collation and data capture to really have more of a strategic focus to think about the why and spending more time digging into those risks. And the final thing here that will be sent around during the takeaways is we created an AI readiness survey to allow some teams to think through a couple of key workflows that we see at DiligenceVault, we see across the industry that can give a starting point for investment offices as they think through how to best implement their AI approach. So I'm going to now turn it over to Manel, who will do a platform walkthrough of both the document review and the memo generation.
All right, thanks, Bill. All right, is my screen visible? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I think as Bill was mentioning, we're going to go over two specific sections of DiligenceVault. One is the document review. And as he was explaining that, he had mentioned some pre-engineered templates for some of the most common documents. So we have roughly 22 documents for which we've created pre-engineered templates, and they can span across some of the legal docs that people want to review, some of the compliance documentation, valuations, pitch books, so on and so forth. So as you can see, these are predefined templates that DV has. And of course, we've baked in AI on the back end as well on top of this. Now, one thing which we all know that everyone views diligence in a different way. So even if DV has a starter template, if there are additional data points that the team wants to, like the client team wants to extract, all they have to do is go in here and just configure what is the data point that they want to collect, and then in what format. Do they want to collect it as a number, as a text, as a multiple choice option, or if it's something like an exposure in a grid, or something which is more like confirmatory, so yes, no. So they can define, the users can define what is the format in which they would want the data, and then they can modify and add it directly onto the platform. One of the other things that Bill mentioned was also, once you extract all this data, you can have an initial level of automated review, and you can set up flags saying, okay, based off of what we extracted, say from personal trading policy of code of ethics, if certain conditions are met, flag it for further review. So that first level of review can also be done directly on the documents, right? So here's an example of one of those templates which clients can use as is, or they can modify, or they can drop things that they don't care about. But it's a great starting point for them to start reviewing documents as they receive from the managers. Now, DiligenceVault also has a pretty robust data collection capabilities, but we are not going to focus on that here and how AI works with that, only because on this particular webinar, we have a lot of non-DB clients here. So we'll stick to documents itself. So here, as an example, that was the template that I showed, but you can see the template in action here. So let's assume we are reviewing a fund, Dumbledore Red Private Placement LP, and it's a pre-investment document review. So you can trigger the project, and then it can bring in your documents and say, okay, I want to upload new documents, or if the document's already on DB, you can just pick existing documents, as many as you need, add, and then autofill. And what AI is going to do is it is going to run through all of your data points that you want to extract and extract those things. So here, for example, let's just look at PPM. So one of the things in the PPM that most investors would want to know is, what is the offering size? In this particular case, the PPM does not have that data, so it would leave it empty rather than put in the amount. And then wherever it does find the information, it would extract it and put it in the format in which it's being requested. So this was a numeric format, and everywhere where AI actually exports or extracts the data, you would have the ability to see the source. So it would say it is from that source, say page number 11 of a PPM. And bear in mind, all the documents that we're using for this demo are publicly available documents. No client data is being used. So Sprott PPM is publicly available. So that's something that's being used. And once you click on it, it takes you to that specific document and the location of where the particular data is being pulled out. So it's very easy to go back and reference. What Bill also mentioned is the confidence score and the AI reasoning. One of the biggest, probably the drawback that a lot of people talk about when working with AI is the need to verify, the need to review. So what we have done is we've built an evaluator that evaluates AI's work. So AI does the extraction work, and then there is another layer of AI that reviews the work of the original AI so that the human review, the need for human review goes down. So as you can imagine here, it says confidence score is high. That means the AI review of AI has resulted into high confidence that the answer is actually complete and accurate. And then each user can go in and say, I want to only see everything with limited confidence or high confidence. So it makes the review process much faster for each client as they are looking at this information, right? So as you can see, here are the examples of, you can have something as simple as yes, no's. You can have something which is more text heavy, where you're just identifying, okay, what is the limit if the fund uses leverage? And then what are the other terms that you want to extract from, say, a given PPM or any other documents that you may have added, and it would extract it and tell you from where it sourced the information, and then it'll also give you the reasoning as well. Bill or Dave, anything else to add before I move on to the next document?
Oh.
Okay. Right. So some of the other examples are also policies and procedures. So for example, here, if someone's looking at a personal trading policy or just the compliance program section of personal trading policy, if you wanted to say extract a couple of key things for initial review, as well as the advantage of extraction on the platform, it builds the repository of the information for downstream reviews over time. So if you wanted to say, okay, let me benchmark who are all the firms that have a minimum holding period of greater than 90 days or less than 90 days, this information is now sitting in your DiligenceVault database. So you can analyze a lot of that information over time versus having to pull it from the documents over time as well. Another example is sometimes some managers will not fill out your custom DDQs, and they would say, hey, here's a standard DDQ, please take it. So we also have a utility where if you have your template on DiligenceVault, you can actually upload the manager's DDQ, and it would extract information and pre-populate that information for you as well. So here's an example of that. Again, Cantip's DDQ from 2022 is publicly available, so that's being used. So it would extract information from, say, Cantip's DDQ and pull information from multiple places across the document to properly answer the question. So here the question is, overview the firm, people, and history. So it obviously pulled information about the firm, and then it also goes in and gets information about the key people from elsewhere in the document. So it pulls all of this information and creates a cohesive response. What it also does is, for example, a lot of our clients also have conditional questions. So depending on the headcount, they may have a sub question. So this particular DDQ does not talk about return to office. It's written in 2022. So it will leave that empty, but it'll open up the conditional question versus here, the question is, do you manage discretionary assets? And obviously the DDQ does not have this question itself saying, do you manage discretionary assets? But it does discuss discretionary assets. So it would go ahead and review the DDQ, extract the information. And in this case, I think it says the total AUM is 1 billion, discretionary is 500 million. So it would also do the math to say what is the percentage of the discretionary assets. So this is another use case where information from the managers, the documents from the managers can be attached, and it can pre-populate a lot of this information. Similarly, another high volume document that we see is investor letters and quarterly commentaries from the managers. And the investment team spends a lot of time figuring out, okay, what were the key drivers of performance during that period? What were the key portfolio changes and what were the top holdings? So this is a very simple framework where you can load up all the commentaries, letters, and it can extract a lot of this information at scale. And then that can be used downstream because now it's something that you can build a time series off of as well, and then analyze how different managers in your portfolio are working through the lens of the data that you've extracted instead of having to fish through a lot of different PDFs. So some examples of different types of documents. One other document, especially because we know today we have a lot of people from manager research, investment diligence, compliance, and ODD. So we have to talk about the audited financials. So that's another document that folks want to extract a lot of the fees information and then calculate, say, total expense ratio. So this is another functionality that we have on the platform where the AI can extract the numbers and you can calculate the total expense ratios, whether it's a straight fund structure or master feeder, as well as some of these types of information where you actually want to find out what were the total assets, what were the redemptions, contributions, and then long and short investments. So all of this information can be extracted directly from the platform. Directly from the documents on the platform using AI. And again, it was going to show the source. Now, some of these templates, DV has started creating those templates, but a lot of our clients have given us feedback. So this question 26, for example, is actually feedback from one of our existing clients who wanted to collect this information and thought this would be a nice addition to the AFS templates that DV has, right? So it can obviously collect a lot of the numbers from various parts of audited financial statements, but then it can also go through the notes and identify, say, any related party transactions or say there are any contingent liabilities or any risk disclosures. So it gives an ability to extract both quantitative and qualitative data points. So this is more around extracting information from documents, so it can be used for downstream review, or also extracting information from documents, so now it becomes a data store for your team, so you can access that information at any given point. And here's an example of that, right? So let's assume you've used AI to extract a lot of this information. So in this case, I believe you're charting saying, okay, what is the audit opinion? Maybe said that was the question in the audited financial. That was actually pulled out saying, what is the audit opinion? So for example, these were the options in there. So what you can do is now, because this data is sitting in DiligenceVault, we can very easily chart this information and say, okay, show me across my portfolio what has been the audit opinion. Is it qualified, unqualified, disclaimer, or other? So it would identify a lot of this information directly because it's sitting in the database. So you can actually run a lot of analysis on top of it. Portfolio level, time series level, a lot of that analysis can be run as well. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are questions that have come through in the chat before we move into the second part of the demonstration. Okay. All right, so the second part is more around, one is reviewing the documents, extracting the information. But then the second part is when you're writing your assessment and when you want to review the information that you have received from the managers from a risk approach, right? So not just extracting the information, but creating flags, but also getting AI to identify the risks itself. So this is another approach where clients have said, okay, whenever we look at, say, a valuation policy especially of funds that have illiquid assets, we want to make sure that these best practices are followed, right? So it would go ahead, and again, you can attach the document, and it would extract and identify, okay, if all of these conditions are met. So that's a good checklist that you can have, saying, okay, yes, the firm has a valuation committee, they have a policy, they meet on a quarterly basis, the committee is chaired by a non-investment person, and there is the policy is reviewed on an annual basis. So you can have some positive checks. Or you can still have an open-ended where you actually want to do a write-up. So it will identify all the positive things, but then it also highlights some of the risks. Because even if you say did not have it in the checklist, it would say that, yes, they do have a valuation committee, but there is no external committee members. And by the way, the portfolio manager has the veto right. And then level 3 assets are also valued internally. So some of those could be the risk flags to be discussed with the managers and the GPs and mitigated. So this is another assessment that AI can run based off of checking off your best practices or even highlighting some of the risks. And then another use case, especially in writing memos and assessments, is coming up with the first draft of the memo itself. So again, here we have used a publicly available DDQ for Hamilton Lane's evergreen structure. So as you can see, again, we've used the same thing. We've autofilled this using AI. So for the entire, say, 50 to 60 page DDQ and say, okay, please provide the executive summary of this firm. And we've given instructions on the back end. So an overview of the executive summary of the ownership structure, the history of the firm, the AUM growth over the years, significant product innovation, all of that can be summarized. So then the team doesn't have to spend time getting all this information. They can review this and then enhance this as they wanted to. And then we also have an embedded AI writer in here that can help you improve the writing, or you can even run custom prompts on top of that to modify this particular first draft of the executive memo that has been written. And then, of course, it will give you the sources. And in this case, it's gone through the entire document to find different information to create something like this. So this is another pretty strong use case that we are seeing. Again, you can have overview of firm history and setup, some of the basic things. Obviously, it doesn't know what is your prior relationship with, say, Hamilton Lane in this case, or so then it would leave it empty, but something like summarize team structures, highlight key personnels. A lot of this information, again, can be pulled out automatically using AI as a first draft. So then the team can spend time reviewing and finalizing this as opposed to copying and pasting from multiple different places from within multiple different documents that you can collect from, say, Hamilton, whether they're DDQs, their PPMs, their LPAs, their pitch decks. Now, Bill had also mentioned about the review functionality, and that is very critical that we see, especially when someone's creating a memo. So we have the functionality where you can assign, say, team members to review. So you can have, say, if I am writing it and if I want to assign, say, Bill to review this, I can assign this and give him a certain time period, and then he can go ahead and I can assign it to him. Or I can also assign reviewers. So maybe it's final and I want, say, someone else to just review it and not just be a co-author with me. I can also have, say, so I think here, Dave can be assigned as a reviewer as well. So I think I've got two people who are working on this, and then they can make edits on this while they're reviewing. So it's very much like a Word functionality, because oftentimes we hear from clients is that when they're working on these memos, whether it's an ODD memo or a deal memo, there's a lot of back and forth and version control issues that happen. But here, people can review on the platform. And more importantly, say when Bill's reviewing this or Dave's reviewing this, they can also see the source of where the information is being sourced from. Because when sometimes people have used, say, Copilot or ChatGPT to create the memos, the reviewer probably doesn't have all that transparency. Versus here, the reviewers will have the transparency that, yes, this was created by AI, and here's the reference document, and here's where it's gotten. And even if the confidence score is low, it would have the real reasoning of why the confidence score is low. And the confidence score can be low for multiple reasons. The information is not complete in the source document. Information has conflict between two different documents. Say the DDQ says one thing, PPM says something else. So that would also flag some of the conflicts that would happen as well. Right. So once the reviews have been assigned, they can review it very much like change tracking, like Word. So it has a lot of that information. You can see the history of any reviews that have been made. And then you can also track saying, okay, I have assigned this to Bill, and then I've also assigned someone else to review the final product and how far they are in the process. So there is a little bit of workflow of review that is also built in that really helps clients create a final version of the document directly on the platform. And once everything's final, they can say, okay, export this in Word. And once they create this, it will export in a predefined format that we would have configured for the client. So for in this case, it's Forever Alpha Capital. And then the text is actually coming from the publicly available DDQ that we mentioned. So it would also automatically put it in the format and the style of the client itself, so they can save time in having to format the output that has been created. So AI extracts and creates the first draft, then there is on-platform review, and then you can export it into the format that is most relevant for your stakeholders, so the team is not spending a whole lot of time doing copy and paste as well. Bill, anything to add, or Dave? Okay, so are there any questions, any follow-ups from the team?
Looks like there's one question, Manel, that someone sent through on the review workflow of that, asking if, similar to Word, there's red lines and track changes. You want to comment on that maybe?
Yes, so just like Word, there is red lines and track changes, so anyone can make edits and you can see the red lines on the platform, and you can also have track changes and accept and reject. You can also leave comments just like Word during the review workflow, because that's a very much a Word functionality that people absolutely love. So we have replicated that on the platform. I think someone's also raised a hand. Is there a question?
Lillian, feel free to speak up.
Can you edit manually before extra room? Are you saying can we override the responses after the AI has generated? Is that the question? If that's the case, yes, you can absolutely edit, modify whatever you needed to do. AI just creates the first draft for your review.
And if that extra room was around spacing in between paragraphs or things like that, yes, that can be edited as well. But
Correct.
feel free to reach out after for more clarification, but both would be supported and available.
So Elena, the product becomes available for users. So this is all current functionality. So this is already live on the platform. So we will follow up to make sure that you have access to this. So this is part of the DBSS module that DB has. So we'll follow up and make sure you have access to it. Ed, the question is there a capability to compare a peer group for the managers? So you will have to define what are the managers in terms of peer groups. So when you have managers listed on DiligenceVault, you can tag them as saying these are buyout managers versus say these are fixed income managers. And the analysis that I was showing from Power BI, you can say, okay, I want to only see responses or data associated with managers and funds within a specific cohort of peer groups, and you can just filter by the tags that you have assigned. DB doesn't itself say that this is the peer group, but you can define what is the peer group.
We have one more question as a follow-up. Do we have a template for that type of analysis? It likely would depend on what data points you're looking to analyze. We have a number of the pre-built templates with different quantitative and qualitative data points for different parts of the investment office. But of course, if you have specific data points that you are looking to capture and analyze, you can add those through the easy-to-use template builder that Manel showed. Can be a standalone or added to the templates that we're providing is to give you a starting point, and that can be extracted into the data point that you're looking for in the format you're looking for. And then those dashboards that we looked at, whether it's a pie chart, line graph, other types of data visualization can be plotted, but happy to show that in a more one-on-one type of environment if you'd like to reach out on that.
Monel, you're on mute.
Thank you. So I think that I was answering the question on can you export the Power BI dashboard into the Power BI desktop app. So we have clients that pull data from DiligenceVault directly instead of having the Power BI dashboard, and then they would feed it into their Power BI desktop app. So that would be through APIs. So we have many clients that do that. We do have ability to export from the dashboard itself in various different formats, images, Excel data exports as well. So there are ability to do that, but there is no direct connectivity with the Power BI desktop app itself. But there are ways that clients have done it through APIs and such. How much training do you offer and working one-on-one with clients? So I think I think the client relationship, when it starts, they're assigned a dedicated client success manager, and that helps the clients with implementation. And then after that, there is periodic check-ins on a quarterly basis about what are the key changes, key product releases that have happened, how can we help with broader adoption, and then there is a year-round support as well. And over time, what we also see is, client teams expand, different teams adopt the platform, so we continue to provide training as needed. But I think once clients start using it, there is a pretty limited request for training, but whenever they do have that request, we do provide that. But Dave actually is in our client success and account management team. So Dave, you want to comment on that if I missed something?
You didn't miss anything. You'll get a dedicated client success person from day one, regular trainings from there on out. For AI specifically, if you want to talk about that, we typically do some hands-on training to kick off what would be your use of AI, and then we maintain some connectivity throughout that kind of moving forward as well. So just an FYI on that.
All right, so I guess there are no further questions. So we can wrap it up. Yeah.
Perfect. So wrap up, a couple of key themes we wanted to leave you with as you think about different workflows and how you would like to incorporate AI in your investment office. Really thinking about ways that you can review documents better at scale to more efficiently capture those data points to make reviews, both initial and ongoing, more scalable. And of course, implementing that trust but verify approach to AI, and then having that overlay of flags and risks and specific outliers that are specific to your investment office and your goals and risk parameters. And then finally, using AI to create different memos and deliverables to spend more time on the fine-tuning, reviewing, and collaborating and let some of the AI transform your workflow and time spent on creating that first draft memo. And so for clients that would like to learn more about how DiligenceVault is incorporating AI and how this could be a solution for you all, please reach out to your client success team. And then for folks that are newer to DiligenceVault that would like to learn more, please feel free to email ask@diligencevault.com or visit our website at diligencevault.com, and you can sign up directly right there for a demo and introductory conversation. With that, unless there are any other questions, thank you everyone for joining and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.